Hey, I think we're live already. Woohoo! All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Accelerators Organization. I am on chat. So I'm also going to I'm on chat, so if anybody has any questions here, um, happy to answer as we go along. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Let me try to see where the chat is. All right. I think we're good here. So welcome everybody. It's Thursday, 5/21. Excited to be on acceleratorsorg.com again for our monthly live. We have a bunch of questions here that we'll go through. I wanted to speak to. I wanted to speak about PPP real fast too, because I know that's important to everyone. Some people on this call more than others, but happy to talk about it. I also want to mention that in Accelerators Organization, the group, I'm going to post something as I'm talking. It's a little graphic that I pulled together that I'm going to post in there. Actually, I'll take care of that right now. And it's relevant to one of the questions that someone asked. So I wanted to get that in there. Posting it right now. Give me 1 second. Post. And we can continue on. So there, posted the graphic. I will speak to it. Let's get moving. So today, real fast, again, just for people who are first coming on board here, Jeff Bruno, your outsourced CFO. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we do outsource CFO work, but really what we are is we're a financial strategy resource for companies, helping them with growth milestones and really managing their business. We are not just a reporting outfit. We are embedded CFOs that help you really dive into your business and understand what's going on with it and how to take it to the next step. So with that, let me see if I can get moving with this. 1 second. Okay, so good. Welcome. So here we go. I'm going to jump right into the questions. And well, first let me talk about PPP. PPP, everybody. If you got a PPP, they're talking about extending it maybe to a little bit longer. Marco Rubio was recently saying that as far as your forgiveness period. Also, I want to emphasize, remember, it's for salary, specifically for salary, and 25% for rent, utilities, and some other office expenses, like some telephone and internet. So please remember that specifically. Make sure you stay in those ratios. Also, don't just think about forgiveness, please. Please, it's not just about forgiveness. It's also about what am I going to do to stabilize my business is much more important. Always think out more than the next month when you're planning on this. So we have several clients that are just not going to get the full forgiveness. They've gotten hit a little bit hard in COVID, and they are going to correctly allocate and hire back and so on, allocate the funds. So keep that in mind. Happy to answer questions about that as well. So on to the questions from people on the group. So first submitter was Alex Kwan. Alex Kwan. And Alex asked, is it necessary and does it help to share your basic numbers, such as overhead or fixed costs, with managing staff? The directors of our child care center are in charge of billing all of our clients, but they don't fully understand the cash flow. Do I share with them the amount it takes to break even or be profitable? Or do I just give them the number of enrollment required for those metrics? Well, Alex, this depends on your scenario with your organization, for sure. It depends what type of organization you are, how open you are about the financials. I mean, there are some organizations out there that specifically say everything about the financials to everyone. That I would say those are few. And then there are organizations who just give certain targets. So depends on your scenario. I would say that you don't necessarily need to be completely open about it, as long as you give clear targets, enrollment targets. And what I mean by clear is substantiate them with your price points. So if you're going to do something that is what I call an outrageous target and it doesn't make sense, you're going to have pushback. And also, if you have it with pricing, make sure they understand that the pricing piece is important. So I would give them what the general pricing is so that you could say, hey, they might say, well, the pricing's too high. I keep getting pushback that people won't enroll because of the pricing. So I think to give them the general pricing would be helpful, and then give them enrollment targets. But you do want feedback from your team because they're on the front line. So you want them to say, hey, a person keeps hanging up on me because it's $300 a session, and they're like, I'm not paying anything over $200. So you need that feedback, but you don't necessarily need all the rest of the financials. That'll just help dictate to what your break-even point is, and getting that feedback on pricing will be very helpful. So I would make sure you give enrollment targets and pricing. If they're one and the same, fine. Then they know the answer to that already. So hopefully that was helpful. Jumping on, one last piece on that, Alex, too. Sorry. I also think that incentive-based structures around goals of enrollments always works. You'll have a very motivated team. So don't forget about that kind of construct. People, especially management level in that scenario, they want goals. They want attainable, realistic goals that they can hit, that they can get incented for. The rest of it, they're not going to care about. And they'll give you honest feedback, hopefully. So next we have Michelle Adams. So Michelle Adams had a lengthy question here, so let me get through it. I was contacted by a major chocolate supplier who has 25 chocolate academies worldwide and is now launching online courses. I was contacted to teach courses that would help bakery owners both during the pandemic and with their business in general. That's great. I went through an interview and being asked to submit a proposal on what I would teach and how much I would charge. I know what to teach. I am going to focus on a proportion of my proprietary process for success in the bakery business, but only teaching a portion of the full class I am creating to launch soon. The person who runs the online chocolate academy told me that teaching a portion of a class I already have is fine. I hope to get some of their students to follow me and buy my full class. I have no idea how much to charge in the proposal I have to submit. This is something I could really help with. That could really help me with social proof as I create the consulting and coaching part of my brand that I'm in the process of creating. But at the same time, I want to charge appropriately. Any help on how to price my services would be appreciated. So, Michelle, that's a great point on you bring up there at the end where you say you want to create your coaching part of your brand, your consulting and coaching part. So my first question would be, what is the rest of your brand that you do? If this sounds very creative to me and very scalable, I mean, you could probably train people how to work under you to do these courses and then just scale this nationally. So I like this idea. So I would ask you, one, what is your other business you do? I mean, is it just baking in general? And can you take enough of your time to come off of that, at least initially, to spend in the consulting world so you can start to build that business out? That's an important component. And then taking that component into consideration, what is your time worth? So if you're doing, that's why I ask you what else you're doing. If you're doing baking on the side and you're making X and you're trying to build up the consulting on the side, then your time is worth something. Maybe it's worth more on the consulting side. I don't know. I don't know your industry well with that per se. There are industry metrics there are types of metrics on consulting you can look at. 50 an hour, 75 an hour, 100 an hour, 125 an hour, 150 an hour, 200 an hour if you're, it depends. There's the gamut. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you're not creating anything new, if you're not building tech out to do the class, if you're not pulling other resources in to like filming and so on to get it done, and there's no cost there, and it's just your time, you could probably go a little bit lower to get traction initially, especially with a big contract. I mean, think about it this way. What everyone building a business has to ask themselves is, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? The first client you have or the first 5 clients are not that relevant to your penetration into the market. So if they're lower priced, then they can use them as a test bed to say, okay, this is working, but they're coming on too fast. I can't handle it, or it seems like my competitors are way higher. Then you readjust your price, and you slow it down, and you get more in line with where it should be. Or you say, I'm getting no traction at all. Maybe then you lower your price. So I think you have to test the market here. I don't think there's some one golden answer here that you can get from a CPA, myself as a CFO, or anybody out there. There's nothing, especially since all of this online stuff these days, it depends on expertise and so on. So you could back into it on what you need to live. You could look at that. How much do I need to make? How much do I think my time is worth? And then test run it. See how it goes. I mean, that's the best advice I could give you. But see if there are any competitors doing what you're doing as well for some initial test runs. So, hope that was helpful. Next question. Jonathan Jean-Baptiste. Jonathan Jean-Baptiste. You speak French, Jonathan? I like the last name. I used to speak a little French back in the day. Spent some time in France. Love it. Sorry, I divert. John. So, Jonathan, I have a mobile detailing business. I was recently approached by a customer who wanted to partner up and bring the business to a neighborhood where he knows people who will pay for the service I provide. Awesome. He offered 50-50 split between us. And he said he would provide marketing, a website, and a portal for clients to make appointments and the whole 9 yards. How can I run the numbers to see if there's still a good profit left in it for me? So, John, there's one important thing I gotta say here. Are you splitting this from a gross revenue level or from a gross profit level? Okay? Or even from a net profit level? That's an important construct here. That's what I need to understand, what this means. Very, very hard for me to answer you here unless I have that answer. I would hope and I would assume that at a minimum, since your business is detailing, that most of it is a gross profit function. Okay? So the part that's not so I'm assuming that labor is a gross profit and materials to do the detailing are part of your gross profit calculation. Okay? Meaning the COGS, cost of goods, associated with that gross profit. So to get to that gross profit. So let's make that assumption. Let's assume that because this gentleman you're talking to is going to bring all of the marketing in, that's his cost in this equation. Okay? This is my assumption without having any more information. So going off that, he's assuming that, then the real question is, you're assuming the rest of the costs. The cost of material, the cost of the labor to get the jobs done, and you're splitting it 50-50 at that point. So I would look at that at a gross profit level. Let's just assume that for now. So if that's the case, it really depends, John, on what the volume you can do now versus then, how much you can handle, what the costs are, and what the ultimate GP is, and what he brings to the table as well. So I put an analysis together, which I can't share here because Facebook Live won't share screens, but I put an analysis together. If you want to jump to my board on accelerators right now, if you're live with me, I posted something. You could take a look at it. So what I did is I posted a real fast analysis on there, okay? What I did is I put together an analysis that shows what the gross profit, how this would work for you, how this could work for you. So let me give you an example, okay? So if you could sell right now by yourself 5 cars and do 5 cars at $100 each for $500 a day, you could do 5 cars. So let's assume your gross profit is 30, and take a look at my post. That means you are going to get essentially $150. Okay, essentially $150 a day, GP, 30%. Okay, so in that scenario, and I'm rounding in these cases, in that scenario, you're going to have, I'm sorry, John, 1 second. I just saw something that looked like it was an error. No problem. So these are just broad stroke numbers. So bottom line, you're going to have, not to get too in the weeds here. John, sorry, I'm having tech difficulties. You make $150 a day. You'll make $39,000 a year. Let's assume you can do 10 cars, still at a 30 GP. That's 300. Okay? Let's assume you can do 15 cars at a 30% GP. That's 450 a day. But you tell me you can't do more than 5. You can't find more than 5 cars. So this guy's going to help you find 10. And 10's the most you can do in any one period. So let's make that assumption. But before is all yours. So at 5 cars, you make it 150. At 10 cars, you're making 300. So my question to you is, can you get to 10 cars? So then you say to me, no, I can only get to 5. And this guy's going to get you to 10. So if you look at it, if you split the GP 50-50, what you're talking about with this guy, assuming he consistently gets you to 10 cars, that means you're going to make $250. Okay? A day versus 150 because you couldn't get to 10 cars before at a 30% gross profit. I'm sorry, at a 50% gross profit. So the question is it worth it to you? The reason I show different gross profits and so on is these are the question marks you need to see of whether it's worth it to you to do this analysis. I'd want to jump in a little more with you and go through this and see what it is. And I'm sorry I'm getting a little in the weeds here. But you got to evaluate GP and you got to evaluate this partnership. So what I'm trying to tell you here, to make this simple, is that a 30% GP, it doesn't seem like it's that worth it to you to go to a 50-50 split at 10 cars. Because you're still only going to make $300 on those 10 cars. Split, that's $150. Right? So that's you making as much at 5 cars. Why do it? Doesn't make any sense. Even if he's bringing all the marketing, you're getting 10 cars. If you can get the GP to 50% and you're making $250 a day, now we're talking. Because at $250 a day, it might be worth it. Because at $300, you would have had to make it on your own, but you can't get to that number. So paying $50 essentially for this guy to guarantee 10 cars makes a heck of a lot of sense. So that's my long-winded way of saying gross margin, quantity of cars, consistency of the volume of the cars are all major factors into whether this makes sense for you. So you have to evaluate that. And again, I threw that together real quick for you, almost in like 5 minutes, but that's something to look at there. So I would, do an analysis like that and see what it looks like. Break all the costs down. Again, it took me a little while to get there. I apologize. So now let me go on to the next question. Laura Feldman. Laura Feldman said, I am an independent real estate agent and interior designer. Long term, I want to build my own brokerage and to be the brand that other agents join and I help them. How did you make the transition from working for a company to going out on your own and just knowing it would work out okay? What kind of research did you do and what kind of planning? So, Lauren, let me tell you something about this. I have a lot of experience here. I've been working with a broker, an individual broker, for 7 years now as one of our clients. And we've worked with other real estate firms before. So I could specifically speak to this. I'll tell you a little bit about us. So I did research in the marketplace to figure out what the need was, what my price point would be to service that need, and could I make it more attractive to do what I wanted to help these companies with than the bigger consulting firms as part of accounting firms were doing for those companies, so that I could scale in the small business market space. So I took about a year doing that, and I test run it with my network. So I'm still working on my former job. Don't tell anybody. but I ran the concept, and I talked to my network, and I talked to people, and I said, would you buy this? Does this work? If I was here, would that make sense? Nah, I wouldn't do that. Well, if I came to here and I was offering this, would that make sense? And here's my value prop. And I went about and I asked probably about, I don't know, 30 or 40 people over a year. And people who knew me and would give me true advice. And they said, yep, that would work. Don't do that. Or you're crazy. Or sure, but it might take you a while. And then I just dove in. Then you just got to dive in. So you got to go for it. I mean, that's what an entrepreneur life is. It's not easy. But I can speak specifically to real estate. So, and don't take this the wrong way, Lauren. I'm not trying to be discouraging. I'm trying to be a realist here. So, real estate is extremely hard. Okay? It looks easy on the outside. But it is extremely hard on the inside to manage real estate, let alone manage building a real estate firm. Okay? Here's why. Right now in the market space, and we've also worked with some startups in this space, one that's actually being very successful, but they have a different model. But not to get into that. But the problem with real estate right now is there's a ton of pricing pressure, number one. Commissions back in the day used to, easily be 6%, some cases even higher, as a net scenario if you were a low price, flat fee kind of thing. And there's a lot of pressure on those coming down. There are a lot of firms that are offering set fees. They're offering 3% just on the buy side, not the sell side. There's a lot of pressure. So fees are coming down. So you need to consider that your average fee, where it might be 5 or 6%, is only 3 to 4%. So take that into consideration when you're building out the business, number one. Number two, people are a total pain. And I mean, again, I love people. I mean, we're in a service business. I work with people every day, okay? They are a pain. And in real estate, it just so happens that there are a lot of people in real estate that think, oh, this is easy. I make 5%. So if I sell $3 million in homes, okay, I can make 5% with like a Keller Williams. I'll make 5%. So once I get over the hump of what they want me to make and I pay some fees and so on, let me think about that. 5% at $3 million in sales, that should be $150,000. Wow, I could kill this. It's not that simple, okay? $3 million is very, very hard to get to. The average price point in Philadelphia, for example, is $300,000 in the city of Philadelphia for a sale. That's Philadelphia. So I don't know where you're at, Lauren, but Philadelphia is a major market. At $300,000 is the average sale price. So that would take me selling 10 homes in a year, okay? And it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 months, if not longer. Mortgages, delay things, all this stuff. I just know this so well, that's why I'm rambling here, but all of this delays your contract to close process. So when you think in my sales cycle, you have to get an enormous amount of sales, almost probably triple to 3 times the amount of sales pipeline that you know is going to list with you or is going to get to that point to where you can actually close, and then add 3 to 4 months to the close process. So it takes a while. So you have to build that following up, build that network up, do that. And I'm sure you have a pretty good network from you've been doing this for a while. But then, as you mentioned, once you get all that in place, and let's assume you do, congratulations if you do, then you go to bringing people on. So let's say somebody comes on and they don't have that network. What do? They're not just magically going to do sales for you. They need leads. Do you have enough of your leads to give to them and then take a cut on the income because you're giving it to an agent that would have come to you? So that takes a lot to build and consistently feed that pipeline so that you can then take a percentage of the agent's pay, and it's worth it for your time to do that. So it takes a lot. I think if you had, a couple agents, 1 or 2 that were really already in the space, they loved working with you, they kind of wanted to partner with you on it a little bit, that would make it a lot easier to launch. And I think if you had some ancillary revenues in there that you could also build in, maybe part of your interior design could build in with that, that would be also attractive. It would help you. So a lot of considerations here in building that. And because of the pricing pressure, and I mean, it is one of the most competitive spaces in the United States, real estate. Again, because many people think they can get into it and make a lot of money. I think the average realtor a year makes 45,000 in the United States. I think that's the number per year. So, that's a lot of turnover for people. So keep that in mind. That said, if your network's strong and you can set up a good sales process, and you could slowly, when you're ready, bring in agents. I mean, go for it. Absolutely. So, okay. So, yeah, Sean. Sorry guys. Before I get to the next question, I'm seeing some questions here. And maybe I'm not getting the questions because they don't seem to be coming through on here. Sean says, BG Wonderland, please ask your questions through the portal instead during mentor sessions to make sure we get your questions answered. Yeah, BJ, if you have a question, I think I would recommend that you send it that way so that I could see it. For some reason, I'm not seeing any questions. And maybe there aren't any, that's fine. So, oh, here I see it now. I jumped on the side here. I'm multitasking here, BJ. This is not always that easy. Hello, I'm building an online school for children. 1 month, 5 years old. Do you have any advice? I have 9 years in the daycare business. Awesome. So, yeah, BJ, that's great. An online school for children. I love it. You have 9 years in the business. So that's amazing. I mean, that's a very broad question, BJ. I wish I could help you on this. I mean, it's such a wide open question. I'm just not sure how I can answer that. I mean, these days everybody's jumping to, I mean, COVID has launched these new types of revenue with online schools for children, and online ideals for children, which is awesome. But it's new, so I don't know how you monetize that yet. I don't know if you'll have acceptance from parents yet on what that looks like. Are they going to shift their mindset come September? That maybe it's a small percentage of parents say, you know what, I don't want my kids going back to school till this thing's settled out. That could be the scenario. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure on what that is or what it looks like. I would think you'd have to go lower in price point considerably than in a school sort of structure, but you have almost no overhead. So, I mean, I'm just not sure how that necessarily could work with because of the parents having to be involved in almost every case with that. I love it, but it's definitely a select scenario. There are people doing it. Emily Morgan, look her up. Emily Morgan from Delegate Solutions, that's her company, is a group that I work with that doesn't do that, but she started an online thing for children just recently as COVID hit that she's had huge success with. I don't believe she's charging for it, but she can maybe give you some pointers. I'm happy to send you her information if you like. So, hope that was helpful. So now multitasking, Sean. I got both here. I got my looks like I got my thing open here for questions, and the live producer. So next question from Gabor Race. Gabor Race, I think is how you say the last name. So Gabor, they asked, financial reporting at our company sucks. Period. Okay, pretty clear. We have absolutely no reports apart from our the end of year P&L and balance sheet, plus our regular bank statements and sales reports. The biggest problem is we don't have a system for tracking expenses properly. What are the most important reports to put in place immediately in our situation? I'm thinking regular cash flow reports at a minimum. How regular should we be getting reports from our accountant? Weekly, monthly? It's funny that we've been in business for 30 years and don't have these. Thank you. So, Gabor, totally not uncommon. Some of our clients have been in business like that 30 years, 40 years, and they haven't really looked at these reports on any time of real-time basis. It depends on your business, how frequently you have to look at those reports, how much your costs and prices and things fluctuate, okay? But it is absolutely critical in order for you to grow a business, especially these days in this market with aggressive competition and everything that's out there. You have to be ahead. Look at what happened. Look at this COVID. The people who were better prepared for COVID, had 3 to 6 months or greater of liquidity available to them, were better prepared, could real time understand their metrics, and were able to maneuver, generate new sources of revenue, cut expenses, unnecessary expenses fast, and knew that they were in trouble and reacted fastly, were the ones who are going to make it through, or going to make it through in a better fashion than others. So hopefully we don't have these types of crises all the time, but even small economic downturns affect this. So you should absolutely be looking at those reports. That's what our business does. A major part of our business is understanding what your reports are and what you need looking forward. You could send me 30 years of reports of history, 30 years, and I'm going to take it and light it on fire. I'm kind of joking, but I don't necessarily care nowadays what that historical reporting was. And the reason I don't care what that historical reporting was is because it might not matter in our modern time today. So if it doesn't matter, then you need to ask the owners, and you need to ask, or yourself, you need to figure out what your baseline unit economics are. And then you can formulate a budget off that and make sure your metrics are making sense. And if they're not making sense, this is what we do. If your metrics are not aligning, and while you're looking at those, tracking your financials, you know you have something wrong with your business operation in general, not just reviewing historically your financials. So, and being able to make decisions in real time. It's absolutely critical. So again, we do that in the sense of, I'm not promoting ourselves, but I'm saying you need to get someone who can help you with that. If it's not somebody like us, some CPAs do it. Not a lot are in that mindset because they have to stay historical with a lot of stuff, so they struggle with time commitments to that, or other firms that might sort of put you on that road. But yes, I would definitely recommend doing that. And as far as systems, I mean, depends on how big your company is and what you're trying to do. You could use Excel for expense tracking and other sort of pipeline stuff. You could also look at CRMs like HubSpot for sales and marketing. You could look at Pipedrive, another sales and marketing tool. You could look at, for pipeline management, you could look at Expensify for managing expenses if you have a fleet or a bunch of people running around. There are a bunch of tools, and a lot of these days all sync with QuickBooks or Xero accounting systems that can flow in the information and make it easy for you to real-time record that. Bill.com is a great system, has approval levels, so you could have you or different managers approve things. So Bill.com is a great online tool for putting all your AP in and setting up approval structures. You can even put invoicing in on the AR side. So there are a lot of tools, but all of it depends on budgets, metrics, and making sure you're in the right direction so you can actually have actionable information. Hope that was helpful. So next question is from Vanessa Vega. I like that name, Vanessa. Very cool. So Vanessa Vega, she says, I am looking to hire my first salesperson, and I need to develop a compensation plan and make sure my pricing is correct to still have a profit. Help! Is there a formula? Do I work with my CPA to figure this out? Is there software? So certainly, yeah. I mean, no is your first answer. There's no set formula. Depends on your business. I don't know what your business is. So that's first. How much gross profit do you have? What are you looking at? You could certainly turn to your CPA. No, there's no real set software out there. There are things that can estimate things for you, but it's your business, business specific. So let me tell you a way to figure it out. Okay? Call me. No, seriously, I'll tell you a way to figure it out. You have to look at contribution margin. Nobody tells you that. Okay? Contribution margin is the best tool for you to look at it for your business. Why? Because commissions are a contribution margin to your bottom line. Let me give you an example. Okay? So this is different than gross profit. Sometimes it aligns with gross profit, but it's different. Contribution is very simply this. You take your revenue, you take all your variable costs, you subtract them. That is your contribution margin against all your other costs, which typically your fixed costs. Okay? Revenue, variable costs, the rest against your fixed costs. Now let me make sure this is clear to you. When I say variable costs, it's costs that adjust in some fashion to your revenue, not costs that sometimes change. That's not what I mean. People always confuse that. Keep this in mind. I'm not talking about travel budgets. Well, this month I might travel here and then next month I'm going to travel. That's not a variable cost, okay, in this construct. That is a budgeted fixed cost. That is, next year I have $10,000 for travel. Where am I at? Oh, I spent more now. Okay, I got to spend a little less later to stay within budget. That's it. That's a budgeted cost in this analysis. Variable is I have $100,000 in revenue. Now I have $200,000 in revenue. What happened to the cost structure as that revenue went up? It should go in line with the cost structure, just like commission does. If you're giving 10% commission on 100,000, that's 10,000. You give 10%, now it's 20,000 on 200,000. That's how you can figure it out. Let me give you some other ideas of what's variable. Software costs, if they go up. Credit card fees, merchant fees, as you go up. Commissions, okay? Materials, if they're direct. If you have to buy a material, that's a cost. That's a direct cost that doesn't change that much as the revenues go up. That's a contribution margin. That's all variable, okay? Then you take that, Vanessa, and you see what that looks like for you to be able to scale, okay? So, give an example. If you have $100,000 in revenue and you have $30,000 in cost, means you have $70,000, material, $70,000 left. Let's say that you want to look at a commission salesperson, you want to give them 10%. So 10% on 100 is 10,000. So that now leaves you with $60,000. Is $60,000 enough to cover your fixed expenses and to help you grow along as your revenue grows? So my point is there, it's basically saying, I'm saying to you, you're leaving every dollar you get, 40% of that goes to material and commission. Okay? So you have to factor that into your thinking as you grow. Is that enough for you to grow? And then you fashion a compensation plan or commission plan around that for that salesperson. I know that sounds super complicated, but it really is not that hard if you know what your couple year projection is, and you know, look, if I'm at $1 million in revenue and I get to 3 million, I'm going to need this much more fixed costs, and I'm going to need maybe 3 more salespeople, so you can project what a system would look like. So there's not an answer out there, Vanessa. Everybody always asks this. They always say, is there an answer? Is there some magic bullet, some software that just you put in some numbers and it tells me what to do? No. Your business is different than everybody else's. If your business was the same with everybody else's, you wouldn't be in business necessarily. Or maybe you would be, but then you got to find out what those businesses do. Forget about tools. just call them up and say, what do you pay your salespeople? Have somebody from college or an intern of yours, I don't know, pretend they're doing a school project and call some competitors and ask them, hey, I'm trying to evaluate something. Do you mind helping me out? Don't really do that. No, but just figure it out. I mean, that's the way to do it. So hope that was helpful. Next question. Nick Berenti. Hey, Jeff, at what point does it really make sense for a company to get a CFO? And can you please explain the difference between a CFO and my CPA or bookkeepers? Yes, Nick, it's very simple. CFOs and CPAs and bookkeepers, what are they doing? They're taking information, they're compiling it for you, and they're looking at it historically, and they're making sure that everything lines up perfectly for you. That's mostly what CPAs are doing, and they're managing your tax liability. Okay? That's mostly what they're doing. Most. Now, some CPAs will do forecasting, and I'm all about that. I think there are plenty of CPAs out there that will do some forecasting. It's really about the growth strategy. That's the modern day CFO. So let me be clear, Nick. That's how we're different, and that's when you need a CFO. It's typically not at a small size. So it's typically not under $1 million in revenue, typically, and even up to sometimes $3 million in revenues. You can handle it with hodgepodge things, with your CPA, with bookkeepers, with things like that. So, and you can do the formulating going forward. We don't recommend it necessarily, but it can be done. At around 1 million, sometimes 2 or 3 million, companies start to get too complicated. You have too many fixed costs, variable costs, moving pieces that you have to think about, and you have to do consistent rolling projections. And your bookkeepers, they usually don't have that sophistication or don't want to do it a lot of the time. Some do, but not really in the strategic mindset, in the sense of, so here's what a CFO would do. A CFO would sit down with you and go, Nick, you're at 2 million. You want to get to 4 million, right? Yeah, I do. I want to get to 4 million. How fast, Nick? Well, I want to get to 4 million in 2 years. So, Nick, you're telling me you want to go from 2 million to 4 million in 2 years. Yes. Okay. That means, Nick, that you have to double your business in 2 years. How do you want to accomplish that? Well, I'm just going to crank up sales. Nick, wait a second. If you crank up sales, who's going to service them? Oh, right. I got to hire all these people to service them behind the scenes. Nick, it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 months to hire the right people. You have to, essentially, what we say, this is where CFO mindset comes in. You have to hire people ahead of revenues a lot of the time in businesses. So you need capital to do that. So Nick, again, I'll ask you, you want to go up in 2 million. So let's say you have to hire 500,000 in revenue for that. 500,000 in revenue. Revenue. 500,000 in cost ahead of getting to that. And you have to get that in over a certain period of time. Well, how much capital do you need to do that? Well, then it comes back to how much profit do you have now? How much profit do you have, operating capital do you have available on a monthly basis to do that? If you told me you had 15% net profit available, I'd say, Nick, we're in trouble. That's not enough because you're not going to be able to scale up fast enough. You tell me your business is cranking, you got 40% profit. I'd say, let's go. We got enough. So it depends. That's what CFOs do. They look at that. They try to figure out your goals, match to your goals, and then help you get there along the way and help you avoid pitfalls and things like that. That's what we do. So that's the difference mainly. So I hope that was clear. Now, we don't like coming into a situation unless there's a bookkeeper on board. So a good bookkeeper is critical too. I would highly recommend a good bookkeeper. And we never, ever get rid of bookkeepers or accountants that are CPAs, that are doing tax. We need everybody. You need a team. You need a CPA for tax and for maybe some quarterly adjustments to your books, which, accruals, depreciation, things like that, which we're not going to typically handle, fixed asset stuff. And you need a good bookkeeper, and then you need us or something like that. So that's kind of where the difference is. I hope that helped. Good. Last question here. Last question is from Ari. So Ari, let me jump in here and see what we got. So Ari says, Jeff, I am a similar profession to you, CPA, and I also do some outsourced CFO services. Awesome, Ari. That's great. In our profession, have you hired a full-time salespeople? And if so, how long did it take you to see a good ROI? And if not, why? So, Ari, awesome. I'm glad you're getting into outsourced CFO services. Here's what I recommend. Okay, if you want to do what kind of along the lines of what we're doing, it's very hard, and I'm not discouraging you at all, not at all. But I find it's very hard to do CPA work, tax work, and do true outsourced CFO work. The reason why is you have a bad dichotomy here. Accountants are slammed, CPAs are slammed from January, not this year with COVID, but from January normally till, end of April, early May. Okay? I would argue that's one of our slower times. Actually, sort of mid-February for us until the end of April is one of our slowest times. Not from new business, but generally it's our slowest time. Why? Because what we're focusing on is focusing on building the plan, the strategy, and putting the numbers to it in October, November, December, and January for companies into the next year. So our busiest time is then. Your busiest time is the other time. So if you're doing both of those scenarios, you're going to be stressed because you're trying to implement two, getting ready for one, doing the other, and you're gonna have mindset pull into both. It's going to be very hard for you to focus on that. So because you'll need a breather to do business development in the time when you're ramping up for accounting. And also you have to stay in contact with your customers consistently once you get their plan in place in January. Then they want to see how it's doing from a variance. So it's very hard to do those both. And that push and pull is hard. So that's just my thought process for you. However, to answer your question, so it is very hard to get a salesperson in our profession. Why? People see our profession, outsourced CFO, CPA, bookkeepers, as like tons of us out there, and there are a lot of us. So it's not a new sell. It's not a sexy sell. Meaning, it's not necessarily something that people are going to be like, yeah, sign me up. I'm doing it right away. Now, we try to differentiate ourselves, and I think we're doing a decent job at that because of the way we're structured. But CPAs, all over the place. So very hard to get a salesperson to be able to sell that for you. I think if you're a large organization, it's a little easier because you have support. You have the large organization, and they have a brand name and a support that really you can sell. You can sell the brand. You can sell that. As a small organization, it's very hard to be able to do that with a salesperson. So I tried it a little. Actually, funny you bring that up. I tried it. I did it too early. I was too early. I started it in last year, end of last year. I was too early in my organization's growth. So I kind of dabbled like you were talking about. It didn't work. People won't buy from a salesperson when you're a small organization. They'll only buy from the owner. They just won't. When you get to a point where your brand is recognized and your value is there, which I hope to be in a year or 2 years from now, then hire a salesperson. Because then people will buy on brand and not just buy on, oh, well, it's another accounting person out there. That's not going to sell. So that's my advice on when you do that. Get bigger first and get your brand out there. So do marketing first, and people start to know you in your region, and then you should maybe go for that approach. And also stick with the regional approach. It's probably better to have a salesperson really saturate your region if you have something that differentiates you rather than going too national. So hope that helps. That was the last question. So we cranked through these today. I think it was really good. And I hope it was helpful for everyone. So we are going to end in a few minutes. Any last questions? I don't see any popping up. So A lot of good stuff today, guys. I think all of it. I went into the weeds in some. You'll see that post on there. Happy to chat with the individuals who I was answering questions with. That's what I'm here for. Sean's got me tied in, and let's keep going, guys. Let's get through this COVID and get to the other side. Use your PPP money wisely. Don't just spend it. And I can explain more of that if you'd like. Check us out on FigScore Network too. That's a Facebook group we're on outside of acceleratoorg.com. And love everybody here. Good luck and speak soon. Thanks. Bye.